What's up guys, it's Nofsky with Academia Audio, and today I'm going to show you how I made this. Alrighty guys, so that was it. It is a trap song that I also end up dropping future bass on the second drop, which I can show you guys at the end, but I want to focus on this drop. Let's dive in. So per usual, let's start with the bass bus. I have a sub going, and I think the bass is what really makes this song hit. Right, you have that nice gritty trappy bass, and I'm utilizing 3 layers to achieve this. The first layer is a sub from our Exhale Serum pack. If you haven't, definitely go check that out. It's down below in the description. I have some R bass on there, and then I have a EQ 40 and 100 sitting in that pocket. Nice consistent low end. Next is I have a mid bass, and this is also a sub. This is from the Kashmir Dharma pack, and I have some distortion on there, and I have some R bass, and then I'm also EQing this, but I'm actually cutting out the sub frequencies. I know it's a sub, but I really liked the tonality of it, and I felt with some distortion it could really pop, and so this is what that sounds like. And that was good, but I felt like I was still missing some top end grit, and so I went ahead and added another layer. This is another sub from the Kashmir Dharma pack. I have some Saturn on this one. I have also some decapitator on this one, and then an EQ kind of zoning in the frequencies between 160 and 2300, and then some micro shifts to kind of push it out to the sides so it wasn't competing with that mid bass, and this is what that sounds like. And then all together, so it has that nice consistent low end, but also a lot of grit on the top to kind of make it come alive, considering there's not any synths in this drop. It's more of a vocal chop as the lead. This needed to take up a lot of the frequency spectrum, and so I am achieving that with 3 layers, and that pretty much wraps up the bass bus. Next is the drums. So I have one of our trap kicks. Just a nice little trap groove, and then I have some snares going on. And I'm also layering that with a pre-clap from Kashmir, and if you notice, they're ever so slightly shifted off of each other, and this just adds a really cool texture. It's a little longer, and it's like a bunch of claps kind of just falling a little delayed from one another, and this is what they sound like together. It kind of adds a little crisp on the top of that snare. So, and I have it panned ever so slightly to the left. Next, I have a little hi-hat loop going on. A little pitch automation at the end there, and then another loop going on. I also want to emphasize, guys, don't be afraid to use loops. I know when I first started producing, there was this big pressure of like, oh, you have to, make everything from scratch and you can't utilize loops because it's cheating. It's not cheating, man. Use samples, use loops. They're so helpful. Yeah, could have created that or something similar? Of course, but how much easier is it to just drag one in and then, if I want to go ahead and maybe like chop out some bits and pieces and replace some parts or add another audio track and then build my own version right underneath it or something. Utilizing loops and samples can really help you stay in the creative flow because once we get that idea and once we're inspired and we're kind of chasing after the translation from the song in our head into the computer, we want to eliminate as many obstacles that could derail us from getting to that end goal. And by utilizing loops and samples, you're able to get there quicker. Next, I have some crashes and cymbals. If you notice, something I like to do is reverse some crashes, especially if it's leading up into a snare. If you notice, right on the second snare hit, this is kind of whipping it into that snare hit, and it can kind of emphasize this a little more. Let me solo the drums and I can show you. You see, I was just kind of whipping it into that snare hit, and it really makes your drums pop. It's a really cool trick I like to use. And that pretty much wraps up the drum bus. I just have some minor processing on here. I have a Saturn, a little bit of saturation going on, another EQ just to chop any stereo from the low end. And then I have a compressor, just kind of gluing everything together and making it nice and tight, and that is it. Next is the effects bus / vocals. Typically, if I were doing a song for real that I was going to release and I would have my own vocal bus, I would find an artist to record, or I would record my own vocals, but anytime I'm using vocals off Splice or something, I don't even bother. I just kind of throw it in the effects bus because 9 times out of 10, they're 90% there, right? And so I just took this vocal off of Splice. It's from the artist Kara, so she has a great voice. I'm not going to touch on the vocals. I might do that in another video when I actually record my own or I'm processing someone else's. But I do want to touch on some of the effects. I do have this vocal chop going on, which this is kind of the sauce of the drop. Without it, the drop would sound pretty empty. So this is what it sounds like. So a lot of movement, a lot of distortion. I got some pitch automation going on, and I really love making vocal chops. They're really fun because you can just throw a vocal on your sampler and then use your keyboard and just kind of come up with a melody that you weren't necessarily anticipating because of the uniqueness of each vocal chop. And if you guys don't know how to do that, I can show you really quick. Grab a MIDI track. We'll go ahead and we'll say this vocal phrase. We'll drag and drop it onto our MIDI track, and then you're going to use this slice button right here. And what that does is it automatically just kind of randomly slices out certain parts of the vocal. And then it maps it to your MIDI keyboard. And so now I can start playing on my MIDI keyboard different notes. So it's as simple as that. You throw it in there, and then you just kind of mess around with it until you come up with something that sounds cool. And then what I like to do is I process the crap out of it and do some pitch automation and certain things like that just to kind of spice it up, and you got yourself a lead. Next, I have a tape stop. And then I have some vocal chants just to kind of fill up the drop in the back. It's just feeling a little empty to me, and this is what those sound like. And then to spice it up more, I have a little vocal one shot. And then I have a sweep. And I'm sure you're probably annoyed by this. I talk about it almost every video because I love doing this with my sweeps, is chopping them up a little bit just to kind of establish a groove so they're not just kind of boring, just your classic down white noise sweep. They actually have a little bit of character to them, and this is what I came up with. So that's just way more interesting than your classic, just normal down sweep. And that pretty much wraps up the drop. Super simple, a lot of fun to make. It has a nice groove. It's very trappy. It kind of throws you off. And then I did promise I would show you the second drop. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that. So that's the second drop. Something I like to do in my music is first drop is one thing, and then you change it up on the second drop. It keeps people on their toes, it keeps them interested. And so, yeah, let me know down in the comments if you guys want me to cover how I made the second drop. I'd love to make a video on that, and that pretty much wraps up this video. Again, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, definitely put those down below. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much, guys. Have a blessed day, and peace. 'Cause I need you.